Hello and welcome to today's webinar, The Growth Driver, S&OP, the Ultimate Engine Aligning Business Plans. We have some great speakers here with us today, and I'd like to kick things off with some introductions. Mike DeTample is Anaplan's Senior Director of Supply Chain Solutions, where he spent and helped shape the go-to-market strategy for supply chain for our customers. His career spans 25 years of supply chain strategy and operations, including supply chain technology architecture and digital transformation. Dr. Sven Lassen is a senior business leader responsible for the reporting and analytics in sales and marketing and supply chain at Tata Steel Europe, one of the leading European steel producers. Sven is driving digitalization and business value from data and analytics, as well as company-wide data management. His teams comprise of an Anaplan Center of Excellence who are developing connected planning tools on the Anaplan platform. And with that, I will kick it off to you, Mike.
Great, thank you for that introduction, and welcome to everybody watching and listening today. Thank you for joining us. All companies plan, but not all companies plan well. And why is it that some companies do so much better than others in transforming their planning processes? We'll be exploring that question and more during today's session. I'm your host, Mike DeTample, as Anna introduced, and we're joined today by Dr. Sven Lassen from Tata Steel in Europe. Welcome, Sven, and perhaps you can start by just telling us a little bit about Tata Steel in Europe and your role there.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, for the introduction. Tata Steel is one of Europe's leading steel producers. We originated from British Steel and the Dutch Hooghovens. Our owner is the Tata Steel Group in India. And we have two main production facilities in South Wales, UK, with 2 sites, and then in the Netherlands, in IJmuiden, with another site. And besides these steel plants, we also have downstream operations in Europe and North America, as well as sales offices in more than 50 countries. Our focus are flat steel products as steel coils, as split coils or sheets. You can have them as hot rolled, cold rolled, galvanized, color coated. Additionally, we also have plating operations. We have tubes manufacturing in our portfolio, as well as profiles. Our yearly volume is around 10 million tons at about 7 billion pounds of revenue. And in a very simple calculation, that makes around 70 pence per kilogram. And also with a high share of raw materials then in it still, which puts it in the place of fruit and vegetable. And with all the capital intensity that behind it is, you can imagine that it's a challenge indeed to make a margin and to create business value from it. And everything that we do must also create the value. And I hope to convince that data and digital is a strong contributor to it. I'm heading the reporting analytics function. I'm driving digitalization in the commercial space. Sales and marketing comprise of it, supply chain and logistics.
Yeah, excellent, thank you. Perhaps you could explain a little bit more about your team's involvement in the digital transformation ongoing now at Tata Steel in Europe.
Yeah, I could set up a new function at Tata Steel, reporting and analytics, which is a business support function that drives data and analytics, digital tools, and digital transformation and commercial overall. Yeah, we support business decision-making with standard reporting, KPIs, with interactive dashboards for data exploration, then business planning solutions, which are, of course, the focus of the Anaplan, and then advanced analytics that is also very much linked to our planning parts. And I could collect existing teams in the organization that deal with data, reporting, also master data, and then added new digital talents on top, data engineers, data scientists, and digital planning solution builders, as well as data governance roles, which are also quite important. And we serve the business, work together with the business, and we are also then linked up with our IT colleagues that need to provide the infrastructure. And so besides initiatives that we drive with the business, we are also developing platforms, data platforms, digital initiatives in order then best support the business.
Excellent, and that's clearly a significant investment in your team. I'm curious, what drove Tata Steel to invest in this sort of digital transformation?
Yeah, several years back, customer feedback clearly indicated challenges in our supply chain that also then impacted the customer experience with the highest priority for topics. So we had a lack of transparency where steel was. We had long lead times, late deliveries. It was very low to predict when orders would come out of production, and also low responsiveness on supply chain events. And then we decided to start a multi-year transformation program called Future Value Chain. And that was then indeed the umbrella for data and digital to develop a value chain, address the challenges in the supply chain, but also tap into sales and marketing related opportunities. Topics that we addressed were better forecasting and planning. It was about optimizing our portfolio and the value for customers, intervening faster, and handling plan deviations. Also real-time agility, flexibility and capacity allocation, improving the collaboration in the fulfillment of orders, and improve delivery performance to our customers eventually. And that has been quite a significant journey. And besides the digital elements, also a journey where we applied agile ways of working, first starting on the team level, but later also rolling out to the full company. And now we are in a place where we're transforming the company also to agile ways of working, or our way of working, as we call it, very much linked with our digital transformation.
Oh, excellent. I'm curious, because obviously this is a big cultural organizational transformation. What specific role is digital playing in the overall transformation there?
Yeah, data and digital is playing a key role. I would always say it's the source for additional business value. We generate a medium double-digit million pounds EBITDA uplift each year, which is in the area of 5 to 10% of our yearly EBITDA. And besides, also future value chain is driving differentiation, also customer satisfaction with higher delivery service, lower arrears, so the backlog of orders that are late. And we can also reduce our stocks significantly. Over the time, we are reducing from 2.1 million tons on average to now 1.7 million tons, which is about 20% structural steel stock reduction, which are also, of course, translating into lower capital, significantly lower capital employed and better cash flows. And out of that, also the World Economic Forum inducted the Tata Steel Netherlands into its prestigious community of lighthouses for the application of Industry 4.0. And we're very proud of it to be there among leading companies as a steel producer.
Oh, that is excellent. And clearly you're driving some impressive results overall for the business, but I'm assuming there may have been some challenges along the way. What would you advise the people listening today are the main challenges to consider when you're developing new digital solutions?
Yeah, I think I would mention primarily two things. One big challenge is the data integration across our entities. We have quite heterogeneous systems in the back end, also different data structures where we need to apply heavy data engineering to come to consistent views. And master data, also reference data structures are important also then to link plans, to link processes. And secondly, indeed, also the business processes themselves and the planning processes, which are happening in islands in the company. So it is not obvious and not easy to connect planning. And we need to, first of all, streamline and define their business processes before we can implement them. And that we do not want to fully rely on Anaplan's flexibility to accommodate processes, but rather come to common sets and common standards across.
Yeah, that certainly makes a lot of sense. You don't want to institutionalize different processes everywhere simply because you can and the platform allows it. You noted there that you were dealing with very heterogeneous systems, isolated processes and teams. How were you able to really break those functional silos in the organization and get everybody on board?
Yeah, that is a specific challenge, and we had many workshops around it to discuss how to set this up for data and digital in the company. I think you always have the dilemma that on the one hand, you would like to make fast progress, but on the other, you should also have the alignment across functions. Yeah, you would like on the one hand to simplify, disentangle complexity, but then again, you want to consider also the dependencies in the organization. A clear ownership is also then in conflict with sometimes collaboration, where you say everyone should be on board. That is a challenge still. I think we were clear that we didn't want a classic governance model there, that we would have large steering boards, a remote authority, then directing the teams, rigid processes, bureaucracy, red tape, but we would rather take it in an agile way and also learn from our future value chain program that we would have business ownership actually driving it, teams empowered to take decisions, to pivot the course, coordinating roles across functions, quarterly planning sessions, and also reviews of our approach, which then also help the alignment and still stay agile. I think we're driving the digital transformation from squads, from teams, which are then also organized as clusters, groups of teams that are going into specific directions. In addition, we have a kind of crossbar as a data and digital chapter, network, a collaboration of teams, like-minded teams in data and digital roles. And we are then deciding about standards, about architectures. We want to develop our capabilities together, also learning, sharing. And we also allocate resources to topics so that through that chapter also we have and ensure certain consistency. And we do have now some nice use cases across functions. They're also with our manufacturing colleagues. Capacity forecasting could be one to mention, or with our technical service maintenance planning, which of course is then also linkage with commercial, because you do not want to have take a line out when exactly the market is there to sell heavily. So these things are going now much better together.
Got it. And you lead into a great follow-up question there as you've started to talk about some of the applications you've deployed. Maybe you could share a little bit about your history with Anaplan and some of the successes you've had to deploying connected planning applications on the platform.
Yeah, we started with Anaplan in 2015 in the area of sales with sales planning, but then also added more and more Anaplan models, and then thought we should professionalize the approach there with an Anaplan Center of Excellence in 2017. In the meantime, we have around 340 active users and 26 applications in place. And let me just, to make it a bit more tangible, give you 3 examples, starting with the demand forecasting, which also was one of the earlier cases. Now, demand forecasting is a collaborative process for planning our steel demand with the customers on product level and for specific countries. We apply their machine learning to forecast on historic data, and then actually achieve also very high accuracy, much better than what our customers could forecast or plan, or are forecasting or planning. And then through Anaplan, we make these forecasts available to around 200 people, account teams, demand planners, that are then adding their knowledge, their understanding of what the demand should be, and to bring then a plan together that is even further refined and improved. And so we, through that approach, can now identify business opportunities that we have, evaluate our portfolio, the planning accuracy improves, and therefore also we could realize quite some profit uplift. The second one is the sales and operations planning, which is then the next process in the step from the demand forecasting. It's about balancing then the steel demand and the supply. And what we wanted to do is take really the best choices, optimize our portfolio. And we do this by prioritizing our customer demand. So we start with the long-term contracts that we need to ensure. Then also the strategic business with the key customers, where we say we also want to have a high predictability of the orders. And then the remaining volume is up to profit optimization. Then clearly where we can make choices to improve our portfolio. Now, and clearly then we thereby, through then kind of allocating our resources in the right way, we optimize our portfolio and make also a profit uplift out of it. And the third application, just to mention, is our risk and ops tool, a very recent development in Anaplan. So that builds actually on open steel allocations that are not allocated or that are handed back from our account teams, or flex steels volumes that were planned like this. And we're trying to find there an optimum additional or new sales channel. And these volumes are visible to our account teams, to sales. They can discuss with customers if there is an appetite, and they can then capture a price proposal. And then with an approval workflow, it would directly be processed to then say, yeah, this material can be sold through that channel, and it's also then reliable to the customers that it would be available. All that is in a mobile app. So there we are also now linking very nicely in Anaplan with the S&OP, and then have directly impact on the sales side.
Indeed, it's a very broad portfolio of solutions you've deployed, and you've done it across many different stakeholders, many different groups that are using these applications. How did you structure the team and the projects to deliver this kind of portfolio of solutions?
Yeah, now we are clearly following the Agile methodology, and that means first of all that we have clear business and product owners defined, that we have cross-functional teams then with the right competences, and then iterative development there with a minimum viable product, and fast iterations in order to come to sustainable solutions over time. So digital and agile closely linked for me. That means indeed we can there manage speed and also the complexity of the digital change, because we do not plan everything up front before we get to deliver something, and we tailor solutions to the customer needs, also take customer experience into focus, and creating business value is always what we have in mind. And the team then comprise indeed of a product owner, scrum master, then business representatives, and data and digital roles as they are needed. Yeah, Anaplan model builders are clearly among it, but also data scientists, data engineers, whatever is then suited for the task.
Oh, excellent, and it's really established a great foundation here, I think, for ongoing digital transformation. And what I thought we could do next is maybe pivot a little bit from the broader digital transformation you've been undergoing, and talk more specifically about S&OP as a really critical business planning process. Obviously, for those of us that are familiar with S&OP, we know that it's really beneficial for driving alignment across various teams in the organization: commercial, finance, manufacturing. How extensively are you using S&OP to drive alignment across functional areas? Who's participating in the process, and how have you convinced them to participate?
Yeah, so S&OP is for us as a steel producer a very central process, quite key for various functions. We indeed redesigned it in just 2018-19 with an Anaplan solution and what we call the S&OP Navigator. We previously had an optimizer, but also had our challenges with this optimizer functionality, that it would produce partially unrealistic plans. It was difficult to tweak the plan, then in a way, and then settle it with certain agreements. So it didn't bring the intended results. It was quite a big hassle. And we thought, let's rather build now an S&OP tool that helps to take the stakeholders along. And we redesigned also the process along the decisions that should be taken, and so the strategic choices, and always creating transparency on the S&OP plans. And involved are then the sales function, the marketing, of course, also with differentiated products and new products that we'd like to position, but also the growth that we would seek in specific sectors. Supply chain clearly involved, manufacturing, and then also finance and the executive committee when it then comes to the total picture for the company. It's now a very clear process how we take people along, and we could convince them through that transparency that they receive on the assumptions, but also which plan changes are happening, comparing also plans versus actuals, and then also consequences of decisions where we can also simulate and show various results. The sales function indeed then can further build on the S&OP, and we produced also a sector navigator where they could then adjust the allocations, for instance, for a customer, between supply routes or exchanging one customer for the other, but just then within the boundaries that the sales and operation plan per se give, but they do have also some say and control then at a later stage of the process. So all that together, I think, convinced, and that is now very clear and established, planning process, and also quite central indeed.
As you noted, this process took several years and was really deployed prior to all the disruption of 2020. I'm curious, how is the process held up when it was really designed for a different environment and a different market? How is it held up, and what elements of the process have really proven critical to helping you navigate the past year?
Yeah, 2020 was definitely a very challenging year with a lot of disruption and uncertainty through the COVID crisis. It was clearly exceptional. On the other hand, we are also seeing more and more this volatility in the market. So it was an outlier, but not still in the trend of it. And what we did last year was then indeed plan more in scenarios. We also accommodated here the VL U-shaped scenarios for our different market sectors, and then also created assumptions what the steel demand would be in these scenarios. We then monitored actual demand very closely in dashboards, also to see which scenarios now actually coming to life. What should we plan with, and then permanently also adjust our plan. So, but many more frequent planning updates that we had to undertake, which then also where it helped also to have a good linkage into all the other areas of production, maintenance, finance, as an example. We also started project then with the market, external market indicators and factors to consider. That was the GDP, that was of course also steel demand market information, or from the LMC automotive data that would give us a forward perspective on our customer markets. And we also took that as a conclusion that we would want to have more external sight into our own planning, and that we also thereby enhanced our planning processes. So we took quite some learnings that are also now helpful, I think, in other volatility, in other uncertain situations, and that is indeed external factors, the speed of updating plans, but also then closing the loop of the planning with the execution, that we would monitor much closer what's really happening then to the business compared to our plans.
Got it. And I think you mentioned a few things there that we'll want to dig into a little bit more. Obviously, sales and operations planning operates on an extended horizon. It was really originally designed around that tactical kind of mid to longer term decision making. But as you noted, you had to greatly increase the frequency of planning. You had to take a much closer look at what was happening week to week. I'm curious, how have you really bridged that planning and execution gap? And has an S&OP process really, has it proven capable of managing both the shorter and the longer timeframes that you're planning in?
Yeah, I think indeed sales and operations planning is not only about long-term strategic planning for us. It is pre-order, so we don't do this on order level, but consider volumes in products, in customers, volumes on assets, volumes in countries, for planning and steering, but not only the long-term perspective. Sales and operations planning and also then supply chain planning cover the full time horizon from today up to 3 years in our case. But it also includes the short-term supply chain execution where we have tools. And our senior leaders, especially in the supply chain space, conduct weekly sessions with the participation then also from logistics, from the business units, from customer service. And we primarily discuss 3 elements in these sessions, also with the latest views, with comparisons against the plans. And that is one, the customer demand and the deliveries and also the supply concerns that we see for our specific customers, potential line stops where we recognize customers may have to cease production if we are not delivering then to the promise. Then production as a second, what is there, the capacity, what's happening, which assets are available, what are they producing? And thirdly, also the stock, which is key for us to understand what's the slab position, working capital, the finished good, and also the aged stocks, where we need to have, of course, a good turnover of the material. There are quite operational decisions that are then taken on the basis of this. That could be buying or selling slabs, prioritizing customers over others, or prioritizing shipments, for instance, export shipments to the US markets, reallocating volumes, or we initiate order book reviews with our downstream operations because we may see that maybe some of the orders and the supply is not needed anymore. So all that is always relating back to our sales plan and the sales brief, and we would then also manage there always this demand and trigger then the ERP system with these discussions, where we then set boundaries with the allocation, say when and which volumes can be booked by sales for a specific point in time. We then indeed thereby steer very much what's happening on the transactional level. So the S&OP is there also central and also triggering quite much the operational level, and we also then link it with sales risk, with handbags, and want to recognize early also if we are if we have material that would still need a new demand and a good sales channel. So we are really acting there short term also with the results from the planning processes.
Excellent. And every time I talk to you, I feel like I learn a little bit more about the process. I think it's clear to everybody, S&OP has direct supply chain benefits. It was originally conceived really under the idea that it would be a supply chain centric process, but it really has the potential to deliver benefits throughout the organization. I'm curious about how you've structured the S&OP process here with its clear cross-functional connections to really drive value more broadly through the organization and use it as an engine for growth and an engine for collaboration. How have you done that, and what sort of results are you seeing from that?
Yeah, no, the S&OP is indeed not only supply chain, it is a business planning process, and the function that runs this S&OP process, also called business planning in our case. It is aligning, it's like a spider in the web, aligning with sales, supply chain, manufacturing, maintenance, logistics, procurement, as well as finance. And we are linking also there the sales and operations planning, so the physical view on it, also much more with the finance perspective and the financial planning, and then also up to the annual planning of the full company. And I think overall also the market volatility required us to place a focus on value and indeed consider cash effects, margin effects, and talk about EBITDA. And as already said, on the stock side, we structurally reduced by 300 to 400,000 tons of steel, which is then a triple-digit million euro of capital employed. Also, the EBITDA uplifts are key for us, double-digit million euro values that we could generate with the S&OP, but also additionally with trading desk, where we redeploy volumes, with sales analytics, which are checking whether we are meeting our sales plans or not. And indeed, it is a strategic direction for us to integrate more with finance on cash forecasting, and we have made steps, but I would say there are many more processes still also in Excel that we could pick up with an Anaplan solution.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've discussed several times now the need to bring together these very heterogeneous processes. You mentioned earlier the challenges when everyone's working with different data sets, and you just mentioned how you're aligning with finance, aligning with sales. How have you managed to really achieve this sort of data democratization across the enterprise?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we are already fully there, but clear we have much better availability now of data than before, and data is also already being shared between commercial, manufacturing, finance, and examples are available. I think it's always a balance between extracting value from the sharing of data, but then on the other side also having adequate control. And of course, there are different philosophies in the company, and we are also a traditional steel player where many people are also concerned that data would be traveling too far, or people have access that should not have. So we need to take data security into our scope. That is a clear focus area. Nevertheless, I think business can see the value from data and generate value from data also if they take data ownership, if they also culturally transform. And this is the soft side of change, to become a data-driven organization, and with also then capabilities on the business side for data and digital, extract actionable insights, extract value, and also grow the ecosystem then of tools, dashboards, insights that are being generated. And I would like it also to much more to disseminate into the business rather than only keep it to some exclusive central teams, of course, that are doing then also deep learning, very, very specialized expertise functions, but you would want to have data and digital all across the business as the foundation for value creation.
That's very enlightening, and yeah, I think every initiative I've been involved with has talked about the need for master data management, making it accessible, making it available, but achieving it, as you noted, is probably a never-ending journey for most. We've just entered 2021. That usually leads most companies to have kicked off an annual planning cycle and start preparing for what comes next. So let me put that to you. What is next for Tata Steel in Europe? What are your highest priorities at the moment, and maybe for the rest of the year?
Yeah, we as Tata Steel Europe have just recently received new direction that we will be separating the company, which is of course specific news. Yeah, we'll be separating the UK from the Dutch or the mainland Europe business, and that will also mean we'll have to separate the Anaplan platforms and tools and equip both entities with the capabilities to run, maintain, and develop Anaplan as a priority. And that also is with regard to the linkage of the data platform that I talked about, the data lake, and so Anaplan also not standalone, also with the data analytics that we are applying. That will be a challenge, and that will be a big task for us. Nevertheless, we are also following strategic targets that result also from the situation in the markets. We need to have further additional and continued value and cash focus, where we translate the connecting with the planning and need to connect also more with sales and finance and translate it into financial results. We need to have end-to-end value streams. That means also linking more up with our what we call upstream, with our liquid steel production, with casting, but also downstream with the operations, which are not always as much in focus as the main hubs that I was talking about. And thirdly, closed loop planning. I mentioned it earlier, connecting the planning islands and also linking planning with execution are focus areas for us to further enhance on. And I think indeed this will be kind of keeping us very busy in the next year.
Yeah, indeed, that is quite a bit to take on, but based on the successes that you've already achieved, I'm highly confident in the path in front of you. I do want to thank you, Sven, once again for joining us today to share a great deal of insight and great advice related to Tata Steel in Europe's digital journey, and in particular to some of the critical elements that have driven S&OP success at Tata Steel. Again, so thank you for joining us. For those listening, I've been taking some notes as we went along. I'd like to recap a few of those that can help us think about our own journeys towards more effective S&OP and integrated business planning. One critical element that's been noted was envisioning S&OP really as a business planning process and a basis for financial planning, annual planning, sales and commercial planning for the company, and not just a supply chain function. I thought it was very telling that that the team at Tata Steel in Europe is called business planning and not specifically supply chain planning. And that focus on really aligning the various stakeholders involved and leveraging the transparency that the process creates to get everybody on board and actively participating. That visibility, I think, to the planning assumptions, the gaps and opportunities within the plan, and in particular, as was noted, leveraging specific applications that give the sales team in the field the opportunity to not just monitor what's happening, but take advantage of it by looking for available capacity and using that to drive additional sales. I think is a great way to build a process that serves the needs of all these different stakeholders. We also talked a little bit about how you can adapt S&OP to really help drive agility, particularly in times of greater uncertainty and disruption. I think the value and cash focus is really key. The traditional supply chain perspective of looking simply at units of production is not always useful in helping to get aligned with the finance organization and elsewhere. Incorporating external market factors as well is something we're seeing across our customer base, especially as internal data, in particular historical sales, historical shipments, is not particularly enlightening in this highly variable environment. Understanding what's going on in the market and incorporating that into the planning process is really key. I think we can all acknowledge that the need for speed is a key part of this as well. A rigid monthly S&OP planning calendar doesn't support the kind of week-to-week decision making that we need to take, because the demand is changing around us. Supply availability changes frequently, and envisioning a process that that telescopes easily between the longer term planning and the very short term planning, what some people call sales and operations execution, is really critical. And being able to do that in a single platform, so you're not trying to sync up multiple systems, I think is a critical element of that. And then finally, it really, I think, is about having this vision of a robust and connected planning process. I think our historical decisions about the systems and processes we deployed were very clearly aligned to meeting, very narrow objectives and very narrow needs of individual teams. And that level of sub-optimization of process really created a great deal of challenge and of opportunity as we look to bring those processes together and get everybody truly planning the business and not just planning their function. So anyway, that's a long list of notes I took down here, but I think they are all critical elements to embarking on a really successful digital transformation and business planning journey. Sven, I'll toss it to you again for any closing statements. Again, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Indeed, it was a pleasure and have the opportunity here to discuss these topics, and I'm fully with you. Indeed, the planning it can bring their differentiation to the company, and therefore you also need a tool that allows you to build these differentiated planning and execution processes.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody who joined us today. Take care.